Starship Vigilant, a Star Trek Adventures campaign.
Good evening, everyone. This is Star Trek Adventures session, I want to say 53. I'm going to say 53. Today's Wednesday, 16th of November, 2022. We are playing part 2 of The Needs of the Many. So I will just quickly introduce who we've got playing. So tonight we have Karen, who is playing Kolish. We have Kevin, who is playing David Osterhagen, and we have joining us as a special guest tonight, we have Alex, who's playing the role of Giara Prux. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Great. It's like being on radio. It's awesome. So what I'm gonna do is I've got some notes here. So I want to just summarise because quite a lot happened last time, and obviously I have to be mindful of the fact that Kevin, you weren't with us last time, and also obviously Alex wasn't around last time. So I will give us all a summary of what happened. Please feel free, as always, to correct me if I have omitted anything important. So, USS Vigilant had been assigned to investigate energy anomalies, which are believed to be caused by the Tilical. For those who are not aware, the Tilical are a race of beings who we believe are trapped in another dimension, who've been trying to get back into our dimension, and they are they basically possess extremely advanced technology, and have also been around for potentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And recently, in the region of space that we are exploring, called the Shackleton Expanse, these anomalies have been becoming more frequent, and there have been communications detected from the Tilical trying to obviously break through into our dimension again. And so the Vigilant was on patrol when you detected a strange signal, which was interpreted as a distress signal, which came from an uncharted star system. So you entered the star system and you found, in orbit of the 5th planet in the system, which was a gas giant, you actually found 2 alien life forms in orbit of the planet. I think I'm going to just change the view on Roll20 because I seem to remember, if I'm correct, I think I did a little title card. Just bear with me. Got to drag my old thing across. There we go. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So so on entering the orbit of the gas giant, you found 2 entities basically skimming the upper atmosphere of this gas giant, and both Giara, who's one of your previous hosts, had spent some time on Vulcan hundreds of years ago, and also Osterhagen had both identified these creatures as a being called a Hakiv, which were basically thought to be mythical beasts in Vulcan mythology. These were identified as ancient beasts that were involved in in seeding the galaxy with stars. Basically, some Vulcan legends believe that these creatures had created the stars, and so basically the Vigilant had spent about an hour kind of just observing these 2 creatures, obviously taking readings and just getting as much information as possible. And after about an hour, suddenly 4 vessels dropped out of warp, literally on top of you, and these vessels were a strange mix of ancient Earth sailing ship, or I should say, they were reminiscent of sort of old Navy vessels. They literally looked like sailing ships with solar sails, but they were a combination of kind of ancient design, but with very, very high technology. These say again.
Flown into the Spelljammer universe.
Yeah, they do look a bit Spelljammer. I'm not an expert on Spelljammer, but yeah, I'll be quite honest with you. And here's a little behind the curtain, thing here. But I was kind of a bit reluctant about this scenario, just because I kind of was struggling with how to deal with these things, because they didn't really seem to fit. But I think they worked pretty well in play. But I must admit, I was initially a bit I didn't really know if they fitted in, but
if you have mythical creatures, might as well have mythical ships.
yeah, quite right. So, and again, these ships, yeah, exactly. They're very, very odd. And those of you on the Vigilant who have, whose planets have a history of, a nautical tradition would recognise these for what they are, as I say, derived from sailing ships. But these ships, on arrival, you received a transmission from the crew of this vessel who who introduced themselves as the Vinchari. And they made a statement that power is their birthright. And then what they did was they basically launched energy harpoons into the Hakiv, as you can see in this image, and began to drain them of energy. But they also attacked the Vigilant with the same energy harpoons, and they basically these harpoons ignored your shields pretty much. And the Vigilant was pinned down by two of these vessels, and then you were basically boarded by Vinchari wearing environment suits who broke their way into the Vigilant via the landing ramp. Again, if I switch back over to the map, the Vigilant is capable of planetary landings, and so they basically broke their way in through the landing ramp, which is, if you look on that image, it's on deck. Hang on, is that deck 2? Yeah, I didn't go far enough down. It should be deck. It's that one I want. Yeah, so on deck 3, I don't know if you can see me pinging that. That's basically the landing ramp. So these teams of these Vinchari had fought their way on board. You also, Kalisha deployed security teams, and you've managed to sort of hold them at bay in this area. So they'd come in through here, and your teams have basically got them pinned down. These guys are in environment suits. The Vinchari appear to be humanoids with crimson skin, and you've seen that they seem to have some sort of bony neck collar, a bony ridge around their necks. So you can obviously their environment suits accommodate this, and they were accompanied with these vicious creatures, which look like sort of large kind of dogs, very aggressive attack dogs. And so these guys were basically trying to fight their way onto the ship, and you'd managed to keep them at bay. Giara, you'd managed to you determined that the Vinchari were actually draining energy from the Vigilant through these energy harpoons, but you'd managed to set up a feedback loop, and you'd essentially, as well as stopping them from draining any more energy, you'd actually begun to pull some energy back from them. And what you've done is you've set up one of the Vigilant's energy cells. You started pouring energy into that, and the plan that you came up with is that at some point to give the energy back to the Hakiv that was being stolen from them.
Yeah.
Despite your best efforts, Kaz, who's our pilot, that's Mike, who's not here at the moment, you basically tried to destroy the energy harpoons, but they were resistant to phasers. You tried to, I think, use transporters to try and transport these guys away, and basically not having much luck in dealing with them, other than being able to keep them kind of pinned down. Kaz, meanwhile, had boarded the ship's runabout and had basically gone out in the runabout to try and attack the Vinchari vessels from another angle. And again, had mixed results. At one point, the runabout was hit, kind of sent spinning off into space, and she managed to correct it, come back, but basically still kind of flying around, trying to break these cables. And meanwhile, Kalish and I think it's your mate. Who's that? What's his name again? The guy you're with. It's Carl. Is it Elias? Is it Carl Elias?
Elias, that's it. Yeah.
There he is. So you and Elias had basically snuck through the Jeffries tubes into this equipment bay, basically behind. So the Vinchari are still kind of in this area. At one point, they tried to break through, but you'd fought them back. So the Vinchari are still kind of clustered around here in this area here. Trying to get further into the ship, and you've managed to come through the Jeffries tubes, and you're kind of in this room here, and you're basically behind them. And meanwhile, whilst Kaz was outside flying the runabout about, and as I say, was sort of shooting at these guys and dodging incoming fire, she'd determined that there was actually another team of Vinchari borders are actually on the route on the top of the hull and are cutting their way into main engineering. So it's basically an attack on two fronts. So I know that was a bit of a lengthy synopsis, but I think that's kind of where we were. Kerin, does that seem to fit what you remember?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. So right, we'll jump back in then. So Giara, just to explain where everybody is. So Osterhagen and Giara, you're both on the bridge, unless you tell me differently. But at the moment, you're both on the bridge. Again, Giara's been doing her best to try and mitigate the effects of the Vinchari's power drain. Osterhagen, you've just been obviously, doing what you do, sort of liaising with Kaz, trying to come up with a solution to get these guys off the ship. And then, of course, Kalish, you're kind of in a dark equipment bay, preparing to obviously mount a counterattack against these guys. So I guess sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I can say I have a plan. I have two ideas.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure whether either one is doable. So idea one, for the guys on the outside of the ship, they are, I assume, using some kind of mag boot to connect the ship. So is it possible to reverse the polarity of the ship from negative to positive and just enough to release the boots so they are connected to positive and negative, reverse it, and hopefully they'll fly off. And the other question then is, in the room that the other two guys are in, or the agents, is it possible to either increase or decrease the gravity just in that room and then pump in some negative energy, antimatter gas? Because if they are energy beings or beings that use positive energy, is it possible to pump in negative energy to disrupt them enough to get the troops in to take them out?
Okay, so I'll, let me deal with those one at a time. So as far as the whole thing goes, that's certainly a viable plan. We don't know, you don't know enough about their technology. However, gravity works as gravity works. So the fact that they're not obviously floating around, they're obviously on the hull, would suggest that they're using some sort of mag boot or whatever to enable them to function. Because of course, Starfleet environment suits have mag boot, grav boots, mag boots, whatever you want to call them. So that's certainly a proposition. Yeah, that's certainly something you could look at doing for sure. Yep. As far as the guys in the other room, I mean, they're not, as far as you know, and again, you don't know enough about them to know for sure. They're not. They appear to be beings. They appear to be physical. They're humanoids. Mm-hmm. But there are other options. Again, I sort of spoiler alert for the scenario that we ran the other weekend. That was the thing, wasn't it, Alex? Was the anesthetizine gas that Mike kept going on about that?
Yeah, that was quite useful.
But he couldn't pronounce it. But he kept going on about it, and that was a plan. Because one of the sort of tropes in Star Trek is that the ships are fitted as an intruder defense system. You do have the ability to pump in anesthetic gas. The only problem with that plan is, as far as you know, they're all wearing environment suits. So one would assume that any sort of gas attack wouldn't do anything because they're still wearing their spacesuits. Now you don't know whether that is because they have a problem with our environment. So it could be that the reason that they're still wearing them is because they breathe a different atmosphere. Or it might just be that they're being cautious because, they suspect you might try and pump them full of gas to knock them out. So
spacesuits can't stop force fields.
Yeah, so true. Again, so that one might not be a goer, but certainly the mag boot thing is a plan. Again, I'm going to assume, because you're on the bridge, and obviously what's happened is Kaz has sort of called in from the runabout because obviously you haven't spotted. These guys have obviously tried to sneak onto the hull, or have, I should say, successfully snuck onto the hull to try and come in through a different route, whilst presumably this attack here is a distraction, because obviously the security, you've quite rightly deployed security teams here because they're coming in through the airlock, whereas these other guys are on the top of the hull. trying to break in. So you've been made aware of that, Osterhagen. So yeah, if you want to try and do something with that, you and Giara can work together on that, because basically what you can do is you can you can like reverse the polarity of the hull plating, to use some good Star Trek techno babble, to see if you can maybe disrupt their grav boots. I've got no problem with that. That sounds like a perfectly sensible thing to try. So what we'll do is we'll come back to that in a moment. What we'll do for now is let's go back to Kalish, because I'm keen to see how this one plays out, because obviously Kalish is now in Kalish, you're tucked in this dark room at the back here. So what's your plan of attack here?
I guess the plan of attack would just be to strike them from all sides simultaneously, so that they've got nowhere to retreat to, and they're surrounded.
Okay. So what you could do is, if you wanted, you obviously can. Oh, hello. Who's that? Is that Mike? Is that you, Mike? Hello. Are you guys still there, or have I lost you all?
No, I'm still here.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
still-
Mike's here. Hang on, we'll just give Mike a second. Hello,
That's-
Mike. Hello, Mike.
Oh,
Hello, you're here.
hear me?
Yep,
Yep.
we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Very low. Yes.
Good. Okay. Hello. Welcome. So we've just summarised what happened last time, and so Osterhagen. By the way, Alex is here tonight. I don't know if you picked up on that, but Alex is here,
I did.
filling in for Sarah Jane because she's not feeling well tonight. So
Oh,
so basically, as we've explained, you're flying around in the runabout outside, and you've reported back to the bridge that
Did you get my message?
I did, but we haven't got that far yet, so don't worry about it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
So you've reported into the bridge that there are more of these Vinshari on the hull trying to cut in through engineering. So Osterhagen has come up with an idea to kind of try and reverse the polarity of the hull plating. So if they're presumably they're wearing some sort of grav boot to keep them on the hull, then hopefully to basically disrupt them so that they lose their footing.
Just electrify the hull.
Yeah, either way. And Giara is going to work with Osterhagen on that in a moment.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back. We've just cut across to the tense atmosphere down on deck 3 where Kalish is coordinating an attack. So basically, yes, you're right. Karen, what you can do is you can obviously communicate with your teams. So here, these guys here and these guys here. And I guess if, as you say, if you coordinate sort of an all-out attack. Now, again, looking at the plans here, the only way these guys can get out of this is through this door here, because this obviously this is a separate area here, and this is engineering spaces. There's no access from the landing bay mechanisms and the lobby here into this area, so they have no choice but to come through this corridor here. Okay, so the good news is they've got one choke point. They have to come through here. So that's why your guys here have been able to keep them pinned down. And because they basically can't get enough. They can't flank you. They can't get around you. And of course, as long as you keep your heads and your guys keep shooting, but at the moment that's why you're at an impasse. So as you say, if you wanted to coordinate, get these guys distracted with an attack from here, and then you can come from behind them, that would seem to be the way to go.
Yep.
Okay, so what we'll do then is we will have I'm going to let's just make so we'll sort of abstract this a little bit. So I'm going to make an attack roll for your guys here, and assuming that they succeed, we'll assume that the Vinshari are distracted, and then you're going to get a free. Basically, you and Elias will get free attacks on the guys in this area, because of course they'll be distracted. So you basically can, because remember you've got Jeffrey's tube access here, so presumably you're going to just pop the panel, come out behind them, and take as many of them out as you can. Does that seem like a plan?
That's it. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so these guys over here, we're going to make a roll for them. I'm just looking at my little handy GM screen here.
am I
So
the polarity to the ship, or am I trying to kill these guys?
Or we don't kill people, but we'll try not to. I think the plan is, well, to be fair, the plan is to try and get them off the hull. What was that, Kevin?
Kill them.
I didn't hear anything.
Osterhagen might have a different.
Kill
Osterhagen
them.
might have a different approach.
But save their DNA.
Save their DNA. The official plan is to try and get them off the hull, but obviously, if you turn the juice up a bit too much, well, accidents happen.
Come in peace.
We'll see what happens. Okay. So these guys are going to make an attack. So I'm just going to basically roll for. I'm going to just see if I've got a character sheet for any of these guys.
We'll blame it on the guest star.
Yeah. I'm just going to use. I've got Hendrix's character sheet. Yeah, I have. I'm just going to use Hendrix because she's the sort of go-to generic security officer. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to give her a. Let's have a look. Okay. So it's control plus security. Control plus security. Has she have a? Yeah, she's got ranged combat, so she gets a focus. 2 dice. And we're starting with no momentum at the moment, so we're just going to get her to make a straight task roll. Let's see, what did we get? Okay, 1 success. Okay, so Hendrix goes first. She, on your order, she kind of, ducks out from behind cover and begins firing down the passageway. Now I'm going to get one of the other guys is going to assist her because she's got 1 success at least. So one of them, I'm going to get them to roll as a assist. There we go. Right, so 2 successes. So, okay, so she comes barreling down the corridor here. And obviously these guys are kind of barricaded here and they begin returning fire. And your guys sort of throw themselves around it and they're literally laying down a withering phaser barrage into this passageway. And these guys here, they as far as they can see, there's 3 or 4, there's 3 of them here rather. And you dispatched all of the beasts, the Manis beasts. So there's just these 3 guys that you can see, and they are returning fire down the pass. So there's a bit of an impasse here, but there's heavy fire being exchanged through here. And these guys will move up to sort of reinforce them if needed. Right. So this is your opportunity. So you can you've got your hatches prepared to open. So how do you want to approach this as a like a melee attack, or do you want to use your disruptor? Because obviously Elias will use his phaser, but
yeah, I think Kolish will go in very hand-to-hand combat, and she'll try and knock a few out, shall we say?
And that's why we love a Klingon, right? Okay, so you hear the fight. You get the message from one of your guys, who says, "Sergeant, we're undertaking heavy fire, but we're keeping them. We're returning fire." And you can hear sort of, phaser blasts shooting up and down this corridor. And obviously, from your hiding place, you can also hear this. So you've got the Jeffrey's tube panel is ready to come out. And so you creep into the room. So from your vantage point, now as you come into the room, first thing you notice the bodies of 2 of your security guards. You remember the 2 guards who were in the room originally?
Yep.
So they're down on the deck. Now you can't tell whether they're dead or just simply stunned.
Yep.
But they're kind of off to one side over here. And these guys have got their backs to you, and you can see as the glimpses you caught before, they're wearing this kind of they're wearing essentially environment suits, and again they have this large kind of collar thing, which it actually works to your advantage in a way, because you assume they won't have the peripheral vision that humanoids have, because obviously they've literally got this big ridge of kind of bone over their shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
If you see what I mean. So, and obviously their suits are built to accommodate this. So they've actually got quite a large kind of structure on the back of their environment suits, which means one would imagine that their kind of peripheral vision to the rear is going to be pretty crap.
Okay.
So we creep up behind him with a metal pad, just like whack him over the head.
Yeah, pretty much. What was that? Was that thing from Was that thing from Obi-Wan Kenobi where the Imperial officer kind of slapped the stormtrooper and he fell to the ground? Yeah, that kind of
Oh
thing.
god, I don't know where it's from.
Give him a little tap. So right,
Yeah.
Kalish, you come out from behind and you kind of have got your you've got your mechleth and everything, I presume, or I presume you haven't got batleth. You've probably got the two mechleths, which are the
I've got
smaller blades.
Metcalf, yeah.
Okay, so
Steve, can we have it that the Jeffries tube is high up so that she pounces down on them? Because I can see the cinematic of her through the air.
We can have it however you like, because that sounds absolutely badass. So
Yeah,
that
she's dropping
totally
down.
works. Yeah, totally works for me. Right. So your difficulty for these attacks is it's a difficulty of 1, and you're
Okay.
going to be using daring and security because it's a
Yep.
melee attack. Now, normally the opponent would have a defensive roll; they'd get to roll, but they're not going to get that because obviously you are taking them totally by surprise.
Okay, cool.
And so whilst you creep out, Elias creeps out with you, and he's obviously got a phaser. And the plan will be that you're going to act first anyway. You'll get your attack, and then as soon as you've attacked, he's then going to act as well. Because again, the way combat works normally is it alternates, but because you've got total surprise on them, then you guys will both get to take your attacks before they even get a chance to react. Okay, so
Lovely.
if you want to go ahead and do your thing first, and let's see how you go.
How many guys are we looking at here, Steve?
So there's 3.
3 of them. Yep.
All 3 of them are literally crammed into this entrance here, shooting around the corner essentially. Because again, they're taking heavy fire from your guys at the end of the corridor. They're not making your guys aren't advancing, but they are literally laying down as much fire as they can. And these other guys are refusing to back down and are sort of shooting around the corner back at them.
Yep.
So you kind of have perfect advantage here.
The way I see this cinematically is Kalish would leap down, sort of judo chopping one of them on the shoulder, like crumpling them to the ground, right?
Yeah.
And then she would probably engage in hand to hand with another one, and that melee would go on for a little while Elias is having a shootout with the other guy. That's how I visualize it in my head. Let's hope that works out.
Let's make it happen. So if you want to give me your roll,
I'll live stream it to the rest of the I'm going to say Empire.
Yeah, to the rest of the ship.
So only one success, Steve.
No, that's perfect. That's all you need.
Oh yeah,
because the difficulty for a melee attack is only one success anyway. So you succeed. So yes, describe it exactly as you see it, and then I shall roll for Elias in a second. But yeah, just play it out.
Yeah, so she leaps out of the Jeffries tube, which for some reason is high up on the wall, so she can leap down. And you get one of those cinematic shots where you see her in mid-flight through the air, just like with a growl on her face. Judo chops this guy from behind on the shoulder. He crumples to the ground.
Yeah.
Another guy spins around, sees her, goes to shoot her, but she knocks his gun to one side, and then they're just throwing each other around for a while, I guess.
Perfect. Sounds great to me. So meanwhile, Elias kind of drops it, as you say, drops quietly down. He then raises his phaser pistol and he's going to shoot at the other guy. And again, they have not had a chance to react. I'm just going to use Hendrix again because again they're all kind of muchness really. So I'm not going to mess about with. Let's have a little look. So she is going to roll. 2 successes, perfect. So Elias, so as you're engaged in hand-to-hand combat with this dude, Elias, as I say, he drops down, brings his phaser up, and he catches the third guy has again kind of spun round at the unexpected attack from behind, and he gets actually caught in a crossfire. So Elias hits him. And then he actually gets hit by a phaser blast from down the corridor as well as the security guys press the advantage and move forward. And within seconds, they're subdued. So one guy has been knocked out by, 2 guys have been taken out by Kalish, and the third guy, as I say, has been hit with phasers on stun, and he just drops to the ground. You spot in this room there's corpses of a couple of these creatures, these these attack beasts that they set on you last time, but again they're on the ground, so you've now got control of the docking bay or the ramp again, and again you can begin to sort of secure the door, because obviously these guys were using this as an access point. So the airlock's obviously closed, the internal airlock's obviously closed, so you can do what you need to do to secure that. And whilst you're mopping up here,
obviously I'll check for life signs on the two.
Okay, so the two guards are both your two guys are both alive, although one of them seems to be pretty badly injured. Took an energy beam at sort of closer range. Although to be fair, the Vinshari do seem to have been using again some sort of stun setting. But yeah, so they're both alive. One of them will probably need medical attention, so you presumably can call for Dr. Plume to send medical assistance. Because again, as far as you've got these guys contained here, and again, these three have been subdued, and we shall swap back up to the bridge whilst you're mopping that up. Actually, meanwhile, let's swap over to Kaz. Right, so Kaz, you're flying around in the runabout. Again, you're still
said last week that I was approaching, flying over the top of the ship.
Yeah,
and I saw a load of these guys on the outer hull.
Yep.
So basically what I'm going to do, reduce, because at the moment I've got the phaser set at full power, so I reduce them so I don't vaporize them, and then just basically do I also don't want to damage the top of the ship either, but I'm just basically going to strafe them.
Right. So whilst let's deal with that first. So if you want to give me a essentially it's exactly the same. It's a control plus security task. And the runabout will assist you with its weapon system. So if you want to make your roll first of all, I don't think you've got any focuses which apply, because again, unless you've got anything that does with ship weapons, I don't think you've got anything that applies there really.
No, not really, by the looks of it.
Okay, fine. So just give me a straight.
Helm operation, unless you want to.
Well, helm operation means you're flying the ship well, but it doesn't really help you shooting at these small targets on the hull. Okay. So
it's just control versus what did you say?
It's control and security.
Okay, that gives me 13.
So you need this. This is a difficulty 2, so you need to get 2 successes.
Right, okay, so
don't get any complications though, because that could mean hull breaches.
I know.
Just polite word of warning there for you.
Have we got any? What's it left?
Momentum, no, because we started a new scene, so you've got no momentum generated at the moment.
Diddums. There we go.
But I've got lots of threats, so.
Roll.
Oh dear. Okay, there's no complications, but I can't roll for the ship to assist you because you didn't get any successes. So what we'll say that you come in sort of, you throw the ship into throw the runabout into a kind of a strafing run, and however you have to take evasive action because one of the larger vessels fires on you as you come in, because you've kind of held yourself steady to line up your attack run. One of the other ships is obviously. Yeah, one of the gunners on one of the other ships has obviously taken advantage of this and has got a bead on you. So you, at the last minute, you throw the runabout into a violent evasive maneuver to avoid being hit. And of course, your shots go wild. Now you don't hit the hull. Your beams kind of shoot past they kind of, and they miss. But you sort of veer away into a corkscrew turn to try and avoid being taken out. And you can line yourself up for another run, so you can come around again and do another attempt. Right, so back to the bridge. So right, so Osterhagen and Giara, I suggest if we get Osterhagen to be the it was your plan, right? So we'll make you can be the driving force here, and then we'll get Giara to assist you. So let's have a look and see what you could. have a look and see what you could do to make that happen. So I would suggest you're probably going to want to use insight. No, you're going to want to use control, I would say.
Oh, what am I
And-
rolling?
No, this is Osterhagen's going to roll first,
Okay, sorry.
Alex. So I'll come to you in a moment. So Osterhagen, you want to use control and probably, I guess, engineering, or you could argue for security. Actually, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'd say
Agreed.
security would work, right?
Yeah.
And what have you got? You haven't really got anything in the way of focuses, which I don't think would assist you, as far as I can see. Philosophy,
Yeah.
So yeah, just make a straight roll. I'm going to say this is going to be a combined. This is going to be a difficulty 2, because you're not doing anything that you don't need to do anything special. You're just literally using the ship's own systems to do this, but obviously it just involves a bit of messing around to get this to happen. So I'm not gonna be hard on you. So if you want to make your roll first
I
of all,
use my talent of testing a theory.
I don't see why not.
It
Yeah,
does.
why not? Let me just check. What's testing a theory do for you? Doesn't that give you a re-roll or something? I seem to remember. Hold on. Testing a theory. When you attempt a task using engineering or science. Oh, okay. So you need to make, in that case, then use engineering, because then that gives you an extra D20. So yeah, use engineering. Don't use security, and that gives you 3 D20s to roll them. So yeah, move out. That's it. Perfect. Do that. That gives you a better chance of success, doesn't it?
Does it? I mean,
He's
does
still.
it? No. But does
Oops.
it?
Well, if you want to give me a point of threat, I'll let you re-roll. If you want to take a point of threat, or do you want to get Giara to have a go?
I'm going to turn to Giara and say, clearly that's not how you do it. You have a go and see if you can improve on that algorithm I've just created.
Okay, so Giara, what you're going to do is you're going to use, I'd say you're going to use again control. So remember,
Okay.
if you just want to tick on the control box there, and then you've got engineering.
Doesn't have
Now,
a
interestingly,
learn from mistakes focus or.
no, but I'll tell you what Giara does have. Giara does have a focus of electroplasma power systems.
Oh yeah,
And because you are basically using those EPS systems to do this trick, then I'm going to let you use that focus. So you've got focus tick there. So you've got. I'm going to change it down to 2 dice there, Giara, because you've only got. It's just a normal success.
Yeah.
Sorry, a normal task roll. So why don't you go ahead and, if you want to roll that for me, look at that! Bloody hell, 3 successes. There you go. That's how you do it.
Yeah, the party has arrived.
Right. Anyway, so perfect. So what you do is you kind of mess around on the panel. Osterhagen is obviously, showing you his algorithm, and you successfully manage to divert or to reverse the polarity of the hull plating, or you send a charge through the hull, and you see that on your monitor, on the bridge monitor. These guys sort of drift off the hull, and you can see there's like energy sparking across the hull plating, and they've kind of obviously their mag boots or whatever you want to call it have failed them, and they're drifting off into space. Now they are still tethered to their to the energy harpoons, so they're not going to drift off into space, but they've obviously lost their footing on the hull, and so you kind of, there's a little cheer goes up on the bridge through the bridge personnel as this happens, because it seems that you've managed to repel the boarders. Now,
If it looks like they are fiddling around with their boots or fiddling around with instruments to go from negative to positive boots,
yeah,
then we're going to keep an eye on that, because we're going to simply switch it back. If it looks like
Okay.
it's obvious they're attempting to switch the polarity of their boots,
got
so
you.
we're going to try a game of cat and mouse of trying to anticipate if they're going to do that and just kind of flip it back and forward so they don't get a foothold.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
So I just said smart idea.
Yeah, so you're keeping an eye on that, and
Some
meanwhile
people
on the
appreciate smart ideas.
so meanwhile so Right, down in secure, or down in the hangar in the landing bay area. Then, so Kalisha's got everything under control there. You've kind of secured these prisoners. They're still unconscious, but I guess you probably bind them, at the very least, just so they don't make any trouble if they come round. And again, these guys on the viewer are kind of flailing around in space. Like I said, they are still they're basically making their way back to the harpoon. The energy harpoon, and you assume they're probably going to try again. That once they get back onto their footing. But you've obviously got a bit of time before that happens. Now back on the runabout.
Yes.
So Kaz, you come in for another pass again, and you're still taking fire from the other ships. But again, you've kind of got the measure of it now. So you sort of swoop in again just to take a look and to make sure that. Everything has been dealt with.
Have they got those guys off the hull then?
Yes, so they're sort of float. These guys sort of floating around in. They're kind of not flailing around. They're sort of floating around. A few dozen meters off the hull, and you can see that they're still tethered to the harpoon cable, which brought them down to the hull. So they're kind of making their way back to where the harpoon is, and you assume they're going to then try and climb back down the harpoon cable and get back to the hull again, but that's going to take it's going to take a few minutes for that to happen at least. As you're flying in, hang on a minute. As you're flying in, however, your keen eyes, given that you are Cation and you have very good eyesight, you spot something. You see what looks like a kind of a blinking light on the hull. And before you get a chance to react, you see this like a pair of silent explosions, where it seems as if something's been planted on the hull. And
charges.
There's literally again, I'm not going to make the noise because this is obviously in space. So, but you see these two bright flashes, and suddenly on the bridge and throughout the ship. So those of you down in the lower deck and obviously throughout the ship and up on the bridge. And Giara, your damage control panel suddenly goes mental, and you can see that the warp core has actually been detached. These charges have actually detached the warp core, and the warp core begins to basically float free of the ship. They've literally blown the panel, the top of the hull off where the warp core is attached, and the warp core is now beginning to separate. So all through the ship, suddenly power dies. You're all suddenly thrown into darkness before the auxiliary power kicks in, and there's like klaxons going off through the entire ship. Hull breach. Emergency hull breach deck 1. Seal all atmospheric doors. And throughout the ship and on the bridge, again, Giara, your damage control panel just lights up with a whole raft of red lights, and on your computer display, you can see that the computer graphic sort of spins into engineering, and there's like a ring of red markers on the hull at the top. And again, on the view screen, you can see where they've managed to basically this thing just the warp core, which is like a cylindrical unit, just is starting to float free of the ship. Like that seems to have been their plan all along.
Have we communicated with them?
No, they communicated with you.
Do we understand what
they communicated with you initially? Yeah, and they simply said their only communication with you was that we are the Vinchari and power is our birthright. And
just ask why the sensors didn't pick up the charges on the ship.
Good question. If you wouldn't have, obviously you weren't here last time, but these guys have scattering fields and cloak. They seem to have some sort of technology, because when Giara tried to beam them out last time, you weren't able to lock onto them because their environment suits basically could prevent sensors from locking onto them. So presumably these charges are in the same manner, and this might explain why they were spending sort of more time on the hull, because obviously they were on the hull for a little while, and so it doesn't look as if they were trying to board the ship. They were actually trying to gain access to the warp core, because the warp core obviously is designed to be ejectable from the ship in the case of emergency, and so all they've done is they've basically blown the hatch that keeps the warp core, keeps the warp core in the ship. The good news is for your engineering team, Giara, is that the again, because this is they've done something which is sort of designed to happen in case of an emergency. There are force fields slam into place around the where the warp core was. So, in other words, your engineering people haven't been sucked out into space.
We can
'cause
recreate the warp core, can't we?
Not at the moment. At the moment, and what happens? What's happening on the screen? So obviously, this has happened as a real, obviously a bit of a shock to everybody. So Kaz, again, you've seen this happen, but again, you're sort of still trying to avoid being shot down. And as you watch as you sort of bring the ship around, you can see that they've now launched another couple of these energy harpoons have attached onto the warp core. And the ship is now, that ship is now beginning to pull away from the Vigilant with this warp core in tow.
Can I get a tractor beam on it?
Sorry?
No, we should.
Can I get a tractor beam on it?
You can try.
Can't we wait until it's out of range and detonate it?
You won't be able to detonate it because they've cut it off from all your control systems.
Can we fire?
So this thing is just literally just been
phaser or not phaser, a torpedo at it and detonate it.
You can certainly try. Yeah, absolutely.
Naismith.
The only problem you've got at the moment is, however, you're on auxiliary power, so your power systems are shot to hell.
But Naismith's with us, isn't he?
He is. Yeah, Naismith is the. Sorry, Alex. Yeah, Naismith is the captain, but he's like an NPC, so we just bring him up when we need him.
Captain Naismith. On Earth, there is a game called Chicken. I wonder if it's worth having a game of chicken with these invaders. If we go to hailing all stations and lock on with our phasers to the warp core and tell them that if they do not stand down, we will detonate the warp core, which will kill everyone.
Yeah, you can certainly try that.
Threatening, aggressive.
I'm disappointed you didn't go for the Corbomite maneuver, Kevin, but
that's exactly what I was thinking.
We'll kill everyone.
Yeah, use the Corbomite maneuver. It's made of Corbomite. Anyway, okay, so let's right down on the bottom deck.
Yeah,
let's go back to Kalish first of all. So because we haven't spoken to Kalish for a bit. So Kalish, you're so it's, from your perspective, all you know is that obviously there was this. You could hear the thud of explosions kind of through the hull. Obviously, in space, there's no sound, but you felt the kind of you felt heard the detonations, and you felt the ship kind of groan as this has gone off, and then obviously all the lights kind of dim as the auxiliary power kicks in, and now you've got klaxons going off, hull breach deck 1, whoop 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 whoop, and all this is going off. So what would you like to do?
I'd like to get my security guys into spacesuits and get them outside to maybe manually try and get rid of these harpoons, cut through them or something.
Perfect. So you can get the guys into the room here. So obviously this is exactly what this room is designed for. So basically in this area here is a staging room for EVA. So yeah, you can. It's going to take you obviously a few minutes to get everybody suited up, but you can do that. So your guys who are so what they've done is they've already a medical team have come and have taken your two guys off to sick bay.
Yep.
And then, as I say, so your other remaining guys are, as you say, are coming into the room, and you're getting them to suit up, and you're suiting up as well. So that's going to take a few minutes to happen. But yeah, you're just doing that, and then you can exit the ship via the stern ramp through the airlock here, as we've done before. If you remember when we were in the other dimension, you did something similar. So yeah, that's perfectly doable. Right, so let's go back outside to Kaz. So Kaz, you are now seeing these ships have now locked a couple of these, say energy harpoons. They've just basically locked tethers onto onto the warp core. Yeah. Obviously, the warp core is now kind of it's not lit up. It's gone dark. So you said you wanted to try and get a tractor beam on it. Is that right?
That's the plan. Give it a go.
Okay, so I'm going to need you to make me 2 rolls, please. You're going to need to make a helm roll to get yourself into the position that you're going to need to get this locked on, and then you're going to make a attack because it basically the tractor beam is treated like an energy weapon. So you essentially shoot with it, but instead of hitting something, you lock onto it. Okay, so do you want to give me a piloting roll?
I'd love
it's going to be.
I'd love to. Come on, let's try that again. I just need to get my. Go. There we go. Hang on.
I really wish I could have afforded to pay for expensive computer graphics to show the runabout, coming in and
right.
doing all
Okay.
this.
So
maybe next time.
Oh, you were saying. You want
Right.
to...
So I need you to make a. First of all, you need to make a piloting roll. So that will be probably control and con. I'm sure you've got a helm control focus, so that will apply.
Put a focus in.
Yeah, and then the runabout will be able to assist you, assuming that you succeed. Right, so you got 3. Is that 3 successes? Happy days! Look at that. That's 3 successes. Yeah, you've rolled that, right?
Yep.
Yep. There you go. 3 successes. Okay, perfect. So we're going to get the ship to assist you. So just bear with me a second. I'm just going to make a 1d20 roll for that. So the runabout is assisting you. Okay, that does not succeed. The target was 12 for that. Mm-hmm. But having you said that, you've still got 3 successes. So, right. So what you've managed to do is you've managed to two successes were needed to get you onto the right course. So that gives you a point of momentum. So you've generated 2 successes, 1 point of momentum. So now what you're going to do is you're going to make a attack roll using the tractor beam. So this is again daring plus control plus security. Difficulty is 2. Now, do you want to spend your point of momentum to give yourself an extra dice to roll, or do you want to just go for it?
I'll give me. Okay. I'll roll the momentum, give myself an extra dice because.
Okay, so add in 3, so that gives you 3 dice. You've
again. I don't get no focus for this, though, do
I? Not for this, no, because you're using the weapons rather than the you're not piloting. I want to see what I've done with my momentum counters because I did have some. What did I do with those bloody things?
You've mixed
this
them
room
in.
I wish you could see this room that I'm in at the moment because I'm surrounded by plastic packing crates which have got Christmas decorations in.
Blame it on the dog. Blame it on the dog.
What's that?
Blame it on the dog.
Blame it on the dog. Yeah.
I think you'll find that's direwolf.
Direwolf. Right. Okay. So, point of momentum you've used. I'm just counting out some threat for me, so I remember that I've got it. But go on, carry on, Mike. So that was 3. Is that 3 successes again? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so hold on. Okay, so that gives you an extra. So 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. Right. So you've now got a point of momentum in play. So you've locked on with a tractor beam now. However, you find that the tractor beam is struggling to maintain a lock on the warp core. It appears as if they are trying to establish. They've got this scattering field that we talked about.
Yeah.
So you're finding it very hard to maintain a lock onto the warp core. So and the other problem you've got is that you've now made yourself a nice sitting target for these guys because obviously you're having to hold the ship steady while you have locked onto this thing with a tractor beam.
Mm-hmm.
So prepare to take some incoming. If you just bear with me a moment, I'm just going to bring up the. I need to bring up the runabout. I'm going to go to the Vigilant page and bring up the runabout stats because for some reason I haven't got them in roll 20. But just bear with me. So I'll bring that up so I can just see what is going on. Shipyard.
Pretend like elevator hold music is playing at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, perfect. Right. Okay, fine. So I'm going to take a shot at you.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 2d20. Oh dear. Right. Okay. So they have hit you. So you take as I say, the runabout is straining. The tractor beam is locked onto the warp core, but you're basically in a game of tug and war with this Vinshari vessel that's trying to tow this the warp core into their cargo bay.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're kind of the runabout is kind of struggling to keep a lock on. And whilst you do this, the other Vinchari, one of the other Vinchari vessels, the other one that was locked onto the Vigilant, is now firing at you. And what they've done is they've actually hit you.
Yeah.
So if you bear with me a second, I just need to find the stats for the Vinchari ship. If you can, oh, here we go. Oh dear. Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. Pardon my French. That's not good. Okay. Right, stand by. You're not going to like this.
Oh God.
I've got to roll 12 challenge dice.
You don't
When a
have
G-
to.
When
You don't
a
have to.
GM says you're not going to like this, you know one of you.
You're really not going to like this.
You choose to roll this.
Hold on a minute.
Have to. You choose.
Roll,
to.
it's
It's all on you,
rolling.
Steve.
Do I have life insurance?
Well, you're okay, to be fair, because you're on the run. You're on the Vigilant. This is on the runabout. This is happening.
Okay, you. It's all right.
The cat's got 3
hold on.
lives left, so we're okay.
Right, hold on a minute.
2 lives.
2, 3.
So obviously, I don't have that much experience
Um,
with that. Is that good or bad?
Okay, so let me just explain
only
quickly
die
how
once.
that. So let me just explain quickly how the damage works. So when you hit something, you roll what's called challenge dice. So then obviously every weapon system has a different number, and it's a d6. So what 1s and 2s count as the value. So those ones that are just a 1, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of damage. 3s and 4s don't count for anything. So 3s and 4s are misses. Now 6s are what's called effect dice. So they count as 1 point of damage, and they also do special effects. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6, 7 points of damage, 8, 9 points of damage. Now the runabout's shields are 4. So you take a breach basically automatically. So the first thing is that means that essentially this assault overwhelms your shields, and you're going to take some form of damage. So looking at the weapon system, it's got piercing 1. Okay. So right, essentially this attack, you get hit square on by this energy weapon from one of the Vinchari vessels, and you're in real trouble. It goes through your shields, and it essentially penetrates. It essentially causes a hull breach. So the ship is alarms are screaming, and obviously the ship has got force fields to protect you. But first consequence is the tractor beam is dead, and you're essentially the ship is thrown off. You're kind of tumbling off into space. You've got no engine power. Your main your reactor your basically your engines have failed, at least temporarily. So you've not taken a breach on there. But basically the ship is out of control. So you've taken a really bad hit here. And as I say, the shields have gone down, and the runabout sort of tumbles off into space. And you're struggling to keep it to keep control. But the long and short of it is that that you've lost the tractor beam, and you're in some real trouble. As the runabout tips away into space, the Vinchari vessel keeps shooting at you. But luckily for you, the sheer randomness of your trajectory because of this damage at least means that they can't seem to get a bead on you to follow up with another attack. But these weapons are obviously pretty bad news. As I say, you took a really bad hit. And so you're kind of out of the fight, at least for now. The result of this, of course, is that the Vinchari vessel continues to pull the tractor beam, continues to pull the warp core in. Now, as this is all going on, so you guys up on the bridge are kind of reacting to this as you see it happening. You see the runabout take a really bad hit and just go spinning off into space, and you can't tell whether Kaz is dead or alive at this point, because again, the runabout has just vanished. Now, at this point, as you are deciding what to do next, suddenly 2 other vessels appear from warp, and basically these ships appear to be similar in design to the ones that the Vinchari are using. However, these 2 vessels, although smaller than the 4 vessels that are attacking you, and the Hakiv, they begin to open fire on the Vinchari vessels, and they actually begin to start inflicting damage. You can see that one of the ships heads for the Vinchari vessel that is attacking that is trying to get the Hakiv, and begins to shoot at them. And you can see that they're actually scoring hits on the hull of this other ship. Meanwhile, the second vessel breaks off and heads in towards where you are, and begins to open fire on the ships that are attacking you. And so, at this point, these two sides appear to be actually too busy shooting at each other to worry about you. So the Vinchari now are concentrating their fire on these two smaller vessels, and these two vessels begin to take hits as well, but they seem to have their own grudge going on. So what would you guys like to do, given that you've now got a little window of opportunity here, as they seem to be distracted and they're not concentrating on you?
For start off, we ain't going nowhere because we ain't got no warp core.
Well, so certainly that's a good point. I should point out, so Giara, you've got your hands full at the moment just trying to get some sort of power back.
Well, yeah, the ship's falling apart, so...
Basically, the Vigilant has got, like all Starfleet vessels, you've got auxiliary reactors, you've got battery power and so on, but obviously the warp core is what provides most of your energy. So at the moment, the first thing you did when this has all happened, the first thing you've done is check in with your engineering team, and obviously they are should we say shocked. However, they are all okay because, as I said, literally the force field slapped into place as soon as this happened, and those force fields are powered from their own kind of redundant. They've got their own power source. So your guys are okay, and they're desperately trying to kind of reroute power to shields and all that kind of thing just to keep the ship going. So you're going to be pretty busy for the next few minutes just dealing with that problem. And I'll come back to you on that in a moment. But for the moment, I think you probably will actually leave the bridge and go down to engineering, if nothing else, just to give your people a bit of support, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, so you sprint from the bridge and head down to the engine room. Meanwhile, Naismith is like, he's shouting orders at the guy who's on the weapons panel. He sort of orders him to start. He says, "Look, let's back the. I don't know who these other ships belong to, but they're obviously attacking the Vinchari. So let's hit them. But unfortunately, you haven't got much energy to spare. So you can't even really launch torpedoes. So unfortunately, the Vigilant's a little bit toothless at the moment. So Osterhagen, what about you? Is there anything you would like to do that you think you can contribute at this point?
So these two ships coming in, can we scan them to see if they come up on any records?
Sure. Why don't you just make? In fact, no, you don't need to make a roll because you're just going to use the library computer. So again, you kind of take an initial scan of them, and like the Vinchari vessels, there doesn't seem to be any. That you don't recognise that the design is not something that Starfleet have ever encountered before. However, you can tell from your comparing your scans to the scans that you took before of the Vinchari vessels. These are definitely from the same technology base. So they are using the same energy source that the Vinchari used. They seem to be using the energy that's been drained from the Hakiv as their main power source, which are these creatures that you found. And although the design of the two ships are very, fundamentally they are the same. In other words, they come from the same technology base, but there are subtle differences in the design, which just suggests to you that they are from two different factions or nations or whatever. But they're definitely from the same origin. The two technologies are identical.
Okay, so it's not necessary that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This is
Correct.
The enemy of my enemy could still be my enemy because they're both they could both be fighting over us rather than the other guys come in to save us. So I would
exactly.
caution. I would suggest caution. Maybe how many runabouts we got? One.
You've only got the one, yeah.
But we do have any shuttles?
You have got shuttles. The only problem you've got again is it'd be difficult for you to launch anything because again you've got so little energy. Oh, hello. What's happened there? Have I just lost? Is that Craig just timed out? Just give me a sec.
Someone's
Mike.
No, it's Mike.
Oh, is it Mike gone? Okay.
He's fallen asleep on his keyboard.
No, we don't talk about that. Okay, well, I'm just going to carry on because I'm sure
Not
he'll.
Let's pause.
I'm sure
so you
he'll.
can delete that.
We'll leave him to work it out.
Yeah, he'll figure that out.
He's drifting.
Okay, so I'm just going to read. Let me just read you something. So yeah, you're right. Certainly, you're right. You know, there's no reason to assume that these guys are your friends. But let me just read you some text from the scenario that might give you a bit more information. So on the main viewer, you can see the Vinchari are now retreating. So the boarding party that were on the hull have now, you can see that they've retreated back to the energy harpoons and are being withdrawn back into their parent vessel. And the other Vinchari vessels are now beginning to concentrate their fire on the two smaller ships. So the ship that's near to the Hakiv, that had gone to the aid of the Hakiv, is basically destroyed in a barrage of fire. And it kind of, literally explodes into a cloud of gas. The vessel that had come to your aid is hit and damaged and sort of spins off. You can see from your sensors, Osterhagen, that they've lost main power, but they've still got life support. Now, they're 4 Vinchari ships now. They essentially disappear off to warp, taking your warp core and the Hakiv with them. And so as these ships withdraw, you're left in orbit of this gas giant. Again, the Vigilant is crippled. And this other ship is in your vicinity, but it is also drifting, and the sort of, sparks coming off it and, debris kind of trailing behind it. So that's kind of where we are at this point. So the problem you've got at the moment is you've got obviously damage all over the ship. And there are some things that you can't call for help because your long range communications will be down. So there are some things, however, that there are some tasks we can go through here to try and get things under control. So this is where Giara's going to come into her own a little bit, I think. You back, Mike? He's back. Hold on, he's muted. I'll just make sure he's back.
You're
Hello,
muted,
Mike.
Mike.
Mike, you're
Right.
muted. Mike, you're muted. Mike, you're muted. I just wanted to wait for him to come back online before I carry on.
Right, you need to unmute your comm badge.
Yeah, good point. Double tap your comm badge, Mike. Okay. I don't know if he's there, but he's definitely still muted.
Must be
Okay.
false.
Okay. Anyway, okay. Well, that's a shame, really, because he's missed the bit where the runabout went flying off into the black hole, never to be seen again. But
Oh no!
I was looking forward to explaining that to him, but he's not around, so I don't know what to say. It's fine. I can edit that out. It's all good. Okay. So let's run through some stuff that you can do. So first thing to do is probably stop the power loss. As I said before, you're struggling here as the ship is kind of leaching. You're trying to reroute power to life support and to all the other systems. So what I'd like you to do, Giara, is on your character sheet, if you can please give me a reason and engineering task.
Yeah.
So reason and engineering, and then let me just have a little look here. You have got you've got a focus on, yes, you can use use a focus because you've got electroplasma power systems again, which is a very useful focus for an engineer because that covers a lot of things.
Okay,
So
have I got the right number of dice selected, yeah?
Yeah, you've got 2 dice. Yeah, go and focus is used, right. So if you want to go ahead and click that, let's see what you get. Brilliant. So again, really good roll. So that's only a difficulty 1. So that gives you 1 point of momentum. So I've got 1 point of momentum in front of me. And basically, what that tells us is, so what you've managed to do with your team is you've now managed to stabilize power. So what you've done is you've kind of got things under control. You've managed to, at least, although the warp core's gone, you've managed to kind of make the most of what resources you've got. You've managed to stop losing any more power. I'm just going to move over to, I've got a picture of the engine room, actually. Hold on. That's probably a bit more thematic than what I'm doing at the moment. Just bear with me. There we are. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. That's the engine room. So you're in the engine room. Obviously ignore the big glowy blue thing because that's now gone.
That's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame really, but it's gone. It looks nice with the glowy blue thing, but that's gone. Never mind. Okay, so you've managed
Glowy blue thing.
to succeed. So you've managed to basically keep. You've managed to. Is that mic gone again?
Lost Mike again.
Right. Okay. So you've managed to keep the power loss under control. So the next thing I'm going to get you to do, Giara, is you're going to make another reason and engineering roll. Now you've got this time it's a difficulty of 2, so you need to get 2 successes.
Sorry,
Now again, EPS, your EPS power systems focus applies, and also you've got a point of momentum. So if you'd like to spend that point of momentum, then you can use that to give yourself an extra dice to roll. So what do the rest of you think?
Like a good idea.
Yeah, you want to do that?
All right, okay, go on then.
So if you want to, I'm going to change your dice roll to 3. So I've spent the point of momentum again. So if you'd like to roll that again for me. Bloody hell, look at that. Well done. Way to go. So that's 4 successes. So that means you get 2 points of momentum back. So I've given you another 2 points of momentum. So what that means is you've managed to now reroute your power into critical systems. So you've managed to stabilize life support. You've managed to stabilize the structural integrity field. You've managed to keep the radiation shielding up and all emergency force fields, which are protecting, which are basically keeping the ship safe from hull breaches. Because as we said before, you've taken some damage, and as I say, the warp core force field has got its own power source, so that's perfectly safe. But this is just making sure that sort of critical systems are working as they should. Okay, so the next thing you'll have to do is get a team to work on the hull plating. So this can all be going on in the background. So you've done the most important thing here, which is that you've managed to stabilize what power you've got left. You've managed to keep life support functioning. Shields are operating at a minimal level, but you've got some protection, and things are stabilizing. So basically, while this is going on, the rest of you obviously are taking stock of what's happened and the damage that you've sustained. And after a couple of hours, or after an hour, let's say, Naismith has you all gathered in the briefing room. You have a quick sort of emergency meeting just to feedback on what's going on. Now, meanwhile, Osterhagen is keeping a close eye on this other vessel that is nearby. So they haven't contacted you yet. However, your sensor scans have revealed to you that they are also working to try and repair damage sustained in the attack. And as you're in the briefing room, as I say, you're going around the table and kind of reporting on what you've managed to do and what state you're in, and the situation is pretty bad, because obviously the Vigilant is now, at least at present, you're unable to go to warp speed, so you are now stuck some fair distance away from any aid. You've got no long range communications.
Can we send out a modified photon torpedo with a distress signal on, giving our last location?
Possibly. Yes, we'll come back to that. Actually, that's a good idea. The other thing I'll mention is that I don't think Mike's back on yet, but let me just have a little look on. Is he looking in Discord? No, he's still not on. So basically, obviously, in the meantime, Kaz has managed to limp back to the ship with the Vorta, which is your runabout. Sorry, the Volta, not the Vorta. That's a Dominion thing, isn't it? The Volta, which is your runabout, but as you sort of watching the runabout approach on the screen, it's pretty badly knackered. As it sort of limps back into the docking port, it's kind of literally trailing energy from its warp nacelles, and it's really pretty badly beaten up. So he manages to get the ship. He manages to get the runabout docked back into the docking bay, but it's not going anywhere.
I'll put it on my list of things to fix, sir.
There you go.
Very, very, very long list.
That's right. You're going to be pulling some overtime for sure. Yeah, your clipboard is overflowing with things to do.
Yeah, clips come flying off at this point.
Yeah. And Kaz is injured, but not badly. It's been knocked around a bit. So Kaz is in sick bay, just getting tended to, because again, Plume has got a fair number of people to tend to. Although, thankfully, most of the worst affected was the security guard. I think it was Marconi. So he was the one who was injured most badly, and again, it was because he was just in close proximity to that weapon. But he's recovering. The other security guard is. Hello, Mike. Are you back now?
No, it didn't go into a bloody black hole.
Oh, you heard that. Anyway, I don't know if you.
I thought it was more in the line of doing a crazy impersonation of Darth Vader's TIE fighter.
Yeah, so do you know what? Funnily enough, that's exactly what was in my head when I described that. Was that scene of his TIE fighter going shooting off into space? Yeah, that's exactly right. So all I've said was that you managed to bring the Volta back. So you've redocked with the Vigilant, but it is really badly. As Giara said, she's added that to her list, a long list of things to fix. The runabout is pretty badly beaten up. The problem with that is, of course, the runabout does have warp capability, but not at the moment because it's both of its warp nacelles are pretty trashed. So you managed to limp back at impulse speed, but again, you're not going anywhere.
You said the nacelles are pretty trash, but all right, give ourselves limited thing by could we jury rig the Volta's warp core? Let's so yeah, I mean, no, the short answer is no. So the runabout does have a warp core, you're quite right. However, it's nowhere near enough to power the Vigilant to warp speed, because obviously you have to generate a warp bubble to surround the ship, and it's not big enough to do that. It's going to take, again, it's all these things can be repaired. So the runabout can be repaired. Obviously, the runabout is your only, as I was saying, while you were offline. The problem you've got is that the Vigilant is now stuck without warp drive, some fair distance away from any backup. You've got no long range communications because subspace communications will be down. And so in the longer term, the runabout is probably your only option to get assistance, because at least the runabout can be repaired. Because it's still got a functioning warp core, and given time, you can get it up and running again, and you can basically go for help. But it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen in the next 24 hours. Put it that way. We strip bits off the other shuttles, can't we?
Well, the other shuttles aren't warp capable, so the runabout's the only one that's warp capable. You have got shuttles, but they're all short range.
Yeah.
But again, so the runabout can be fixed, but it's just going to take time. And as we've just gone through, that Giara has managed to, stabilize. You've kind of got life support stabilized, structural integrity stabilized. You've got some control, but at the moment you're kind of stuck. And as I said, whilst you're having a meeting with, Naismith, he's sort of going through the laundry list of problems. Osterhagen's keeping an eye on this other vessel, which is in close proximity, and you were able to detect that they are also carrying out repairs. At the same time, they're obviously still trying to get themselves put right. So whilst you are having your conversation, the bridge calls down to the briefing room and basically says, "Oh, sir, Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the other vessel." So Naismith says, transfer it down here, Lieutenant. And the view screen in the briefing room, which is quite a small briefing room, but the view screen comes on, and you can see a staticky image appears of a Vinchari woman. This is the first time you've seen one of the Vinchari kind of in the flesh, if you like. You've seen them through spacesuits before, but she's an attractive woman with red tinted skin, and as we noted, she has this kind of odd bone collar around her shoulders. You can see behind her that the command deck of her ship appears to be in complete shambles. There's literally girders hanging down from the ceiling. However, she seems unfazed by this, and she says, "We are the Arcasay. We are Vinchari, but believe that life is more sacred than simply the need for power. We've both sustained heavy damage. Perhaps we can help each other. I invite you to come aboard my..." And then her image disappears again, and you can't. you can't really tell whether her. Did you say trap? You can't really tell whether this was cut off intentionally or whether it was just simply because the communications have dropped down. So and repeated attempts for you to try and communicate with her, kind of you just can't get through.
At this point, the words of one Admiral James T. Kirk comes to mind. Don't believe them. Don't trust them.
Okay, well, it's up to you. What would you want to do? So this ship has not taken any offensive action against you for sure. They're kind of drifting nearby.
Are these the ones that come in shooting?
Yes, so they're the ones who came in and attacked the Vinshari ships.
Well, at the moment we're both screwed by the looks of it. So
yep.
Yeah, we've got nothing to lose from where I'm sitting.
So what about the rest of you? What about the rest of you guys? How do you feel about this then? I mean, so Kalish, from security point of view, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's our best bet. It's a lifeline out there. I think it's worth taking the risk.
Okay, and what, Osterhagen?
Do we have enough power to transport us?
Yes, I think you could probably use the transporters, at least short range. I mean, these guys their ship's about 5,000 kilometers off your beam. So yes, you could
we might want to save the power to transport us back. Maybe take a shuttle over there.
You could use a shuttle. Again, you do have other shuttlecraft, so they're only short range.
Surely we could use the transporters in the runabout, because they'd be fully.
No, because it's knackered.
Fair enough.
I'm going to emphasise again how badly knackered the runabout is. It's you literally got holes shot in it. So I wouldn't risk turning anything on there until it's been fixed, because it will probably explode.
Okay.
That dice roll was really bad, Mike. If as I say, if I'd been feeling nasty, you would have been in a lot more trouble. So the runabout is salvageable, but it will need time to repair.
Okay.
So I would say that any of their systems are just not work. You can't use them. So
fair enough.
Agreed that probably if you want to save power, then a shuttle is probably the best option.
Okay.
So I'm going to assume you're probably all going to go, right? Because that would make let's not split the party. That just makes sense.
I mean, Kalish is definitely going.
Yeah, Kalish is definitely going.
That sounds like some GM railroading there.
That's some GM bullshit right there.
Yes.
I mean, it's up to you. If you want to take, you can take secondary characters, but I'm certainly, as you say, Kalish, I'm 100% sure will go. Kaz will go because Kaz is the first officer, so I would assume Naismith will delegate for Kaz to go. Anyway, it makes sense for Giara to go, or at least for Giara to delegate. Giara could send one of her people to go, but I mean, let's just say she's going to go because, you might be able to get something from them to help you with your repairs, possibly. And then I'll leave it up to if Osterhagen wants to go, get some DNA samples. Obviously,
You don't have a spare warp core by any chance?
No. Oh yeah, there was one. Where did I see that? We left one in the hangar bay, didn't we? There was one tucked
Were we transporting warp cores? Wasn't that our mission?
Bring a large.
We've got them in.
You know that large thing in the cargo bay that's wrapped in bubble wrap.
I thought we had the replicator patterns.
You could 3D print one, but it'll take you about 6 months.
Yeah.
It'll just take forever.
We haven't got the power to do it.
No, exactly.
I'll order one.
No, unfortunately, that tickled me, that idea. But no, you don't have a spare warp core. Unfortunately, the Vigilant just isn't big enough. The Vigilant's only it's quite small. And it's.
I was only joking.
What's that?
I was only joking.
No, I know you were. But it made me laugh, the idea of there being a warp core wrapped in bubble wrap. I love that.
So it's just in the corner of some stock room, it's just sitting there on the floor.
Yeah, Osterhagen's been putting one together in his spare time. He's
It's like a home project.
a 1-to-1 scale model of a warp core.
You get
Only thing is, you
unwrap. Yeah, you unwrap the warp core. You realise that I've removed the inside and it's just vials and vials. It's where I stash my vials.
You're keeping all your DNA samples.
Yeah.
Or more likely, you try and fit it, and it turns out it's got the wrong connections. Because somebody messed up on the requisition form, so it's got the wrong plugs on the end.
USB adapter.
Yeah. It's you. Oh, I need USB 3, not USB 2.
Hang on.
Okay.
Wants an update.
Yeah,
One of
exactly.
9,000.
It's like a blinking Android phone. It'll take like
Internet's
3
gone
months
down.
to do an update.
Internet's gone down.
Yeah.
You mean an Apple?
Nah. Listen, mate, I had to set up a replacement Android phone for my mum yesterday, and it took me forever just for the thing to work. Wouldn't happen with an Apple phone, believe me.
Don't you have any IT skills? I mean, I'm just saying because
it's not so much the IT skills; it's the hardware I'm working with that's the problem. You cheeky
Oh.
monkey.
That's age.
That's age.
This might cause conflict, but I'm on the Apple team.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
My last Apple was a 3. Yeah, binned it now.
How's your foldy phone going, by the way? Is that still in one piece? Is it?
Absolutely awesome.
You love it,
As
yeah.
I say, my
Yeah,
lot.
it's really
I
good.
do know.
How does it feel hanging up angrily on a call? We just fold it like God.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, that'd be pretty cool.
All I
wouldn't it?
was going to say is my last Apple was a Granny Smith.
Oh, very funny. Anyway, that was a humorous interlude, but it's fine. I can edit that out. It's fine. Anyway, right. So, okay. So you're gonna go and speak to this woman. So, I'm going to assume, unless anyone objects, that you're basically all going to go, just because again, it makes life easier for all of us.
Makes TPKs a lot easier as well.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah. So you kind of all cram into a shuttle. Of course, the problem is that the Vigilant shuttles are pretty small. The ones that are left. Let me just find the map, because of course you've taken out the big one has gone because of the
Docking modification.
runabout being moved in.
There's replicators in it. All this work makes me want coffee.
Yeah, quite right. I bet Giara will have her sleeves rolled up as well, probably. That'd be a thing. Right, okay, so anyway, so you assemble in the shuttle bay. We're going to say you managed to squeeze into a shuttle pod. Probably not canon, but whatever. In fact, actually, the Vigilant, I think there's actually a couple of other shuttle bays. I remember they're sort of over here. So it doesn't matter anyway. The point is, you've got a couple of shuttles.
Can't we take the warhead?
What's that?
Can't we take the warhead?
Yeah, but that's a bit overkill, really, and docking it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you get into a shuttle and you cautiously approach this other vessel, and reassuringly, they don't shoot at you, which is always a good sign. And as you approach you can see what appears to be a docking bay opens on the underside of the ship, and as you get closer, again you are sort of struck by how kind of odd these ships look, because they are definitely they're very much a throwback to a different technology. Their hulls again, and you can see actually on their upper decks. If I drag over, I want to show you that map again, or that picture again. So again, as you get closer, and again, the ships aren't identical to these, but they're very, very similar. You notice that as you get close, they've got gun ports down the side of the hull, so that's where the obviously weapons are housed. And you can see that on this actual upper section, it actually appears to be open to space, but it's actually got a force field covering it, so you can actually see people moving about on the deck. But they're actually protected by there's like a translucent force field that's keeping them protected from the vacuum of space.
They appear to be swabbing the deck.
Yeah, funny that. Arr. They've all got stripy t-shirts on.
Since got to have an eye patch.
Are they French?
Yeah, are they French? No, they're not wearing onions around their necks. No, they're not French. Anyway, so as you approach the on the underside of the hull, as I say, a shuttle bay opens, and Kaz is able to easily dock. You basically put the shuttle in, and it's brought into a small docking bay. And as you disembark, this the Vinshari woman approaches you, the same woman that you saw on the communications screen. And there are other crew members, both male and female, kind of working around the hangar deck. And as I say, there's plenty of debris about, and they're obviously making repairs. And you can see the sort of sparking of what look like arc welders, as they're kind of repairing hull plating and so on. And the only difference you can tell between the male and the female is that I mean, they are obviously male and female. You notice that the neck collars are slightly different. So the male collars are slightly smaller, and they're all kind of odd, they look like bony protrusions. So it seems to come through it's literally part of their skeletal structure, if you see what I mean. And anyway, so she approaches you as you disembark, and she bows slightly as she approaches, and she says she identifies herself as what's her name? She identifies herself as Captain Jalara. She, as you approach, and she sort of greets you, and she says, I'm Captain Jalara. Welcome aboard." She goes, "It says I've got 9 dead, 27 wounded on board my ship. 2 of my masts are destroyed, and they've even and those Vinshari dogs even took the Hakiv, which would have given us at least the opportunity to retrieve some energy." She, as she approaches you, and she's sort of shaking her head, and she says, "And you are," and she's, "What? And how are you known? What are your names?"
I step forward and says, I am First Officer Kaz of the Starship Vigilant, and then I introduce the rest of the party.
So she looks at all of you. She looks at all of you in turn, and she says, "Interesting. You are not all of the same race. How were you identified? What is your faction?"
We are members of Starfleet. Which is,
Starfleet. We have not heard of this.
no, we are new to the area. So
You can apply online if you want to join.
That's good. Yeah. The form. It is a 35-page form, but it's pretty good.
Quite hard. You get trained within an inch of your life.
Yeah.
Tick this
Quite literally.
tick this box if you want to get more
Right, so-
spam. Yeah.
As she says, she says, "I am gratified to meet you. It is always interesting to meet new species." And I explain again that although we are Vinshari, we are of the Arcasei. We are not the same as the Vinshari who attacked you. Our aims are certainly different.
Is Vinshari
And please,
Vinshari your species name? What you call yourselves?
yes,
Right,
we are.
okay.
We are of the Vinshari. However, we are known as the Arcasei, and she sort of, waves around the ship. She says, "Join me. I'm inspecting the."
Could you spell that? I'm writing that down.
AR-KA-SE.
Would this be on a little sticky label?
Yes, I'm going to get a potion note.
Hi, my name is.
No,
Hi, my
it's
name is
it's more
Jalara.
for labelling slides.
We all need to get like name tags, like like stickers you get.
Yeah, you should have. Yeah, hi, my name is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
I would do.
Okay, so-
but mine's got red on it.
It's got red on it. Okay, so she, as she's kind of, she says, "Look, please come and talk. Come with me and talk while I'm exploring, while I'm inspecting the damage. This vessel is known as Liberator. You said your vessel was known as Vigilant, correct?"
That is correct. Yes.
And so she, as she gestures, she says, "Well, come with me, and we will talk." And she sort of leads you. Now, as you're heading across the bay, what you do notice, however, is she says, Thasin, and she calls to another humanoid. And as this guy approaches, what you actually see is this actually appears to be a Tilikal. So you remember that the Tilikal were these kind of very slender-looking guys with because you sort of, although you encountered them in the kind of other dimension in some sort of at least you encountered an image of them, and this Thasin is clearly a member of the Tilikal. She introduces him as Thasin, and she says, "This is my science officer, Thasin." And
I turn around and polite as anything. I say, "I'm pleased to meet you. You look familiar. Are you Tilikali?"
he looks at you slightly surprised and says, "Have you met others of my kind before?"
You could say that, yes.
Interesting. I have never encountered anyone since joining the Arcasay, who has met my species before. And he explains to you that a couple of years ago, the Vinchar a Vinchari party had found him and some others of some other Tilikal in their stasis chambers on a planet which the Vinchari had claimed as a colony. And if you remember, when you encountered the assessor before, you remember how you I don't know if you remember how you learned that the Tilikal had their sort of bodies had been put into stasis.
Oh, right, yeah.
So whereas their kind of essence had been sent into the other dimension, which is where their kind of intellect and their essence is held, but their physical bodies had actually been sort of stored around the galaxy in storehouses, which were being protected by assessors, essentially. And so what he tells you is that his group had been basically, the Vinchari had claimed this planet, and they'd somehow, again, given that they have deceptively high technology and technological know-how, even though they're kind of bombing about in sailing ships, essentially, they'd managed to actually use the sarcophagus controls to pull back their essence into at least a couple of his party. So he and 3 others of his group were successfully revived. Unfortunately, the Vinchari had actually taken him and his companions back to their homeworld, and had actually tried to torture out of them the secrets of the Tilikal technology. But he couldn't remember anything about that. So he'd been tortured, and then basically the Arcasay, who are essentially a rebel faction, if you like, within the Vinchari, had actually liberated him. The other 3 had unfortunately not survived, but he was actually liberated from this Vinchari facility, and since then he's essentially joined the crew of the Liberator and the Arcasay Rebellion in hopes of being able to actually assist his own people, but also trying to work with the Arcasay to develop a new energy source. So as we talked about last time, the Vinchari use the energy from these Hakiv creatures to power their technology, and even this ship is powered by the same energy. So even though the Arcasay, they are desperate, however, to try and find a way to successfully power their technology without relying upon the Hakiv, and that's basically what seems to be the fundamental difference between the 2 factions, is that the Vinchari, the main Vinchari, are quite happy to keep capturing and killing these creatures to use their energy, whereas the Arcasay are trying to find a different way forward. And the Vinchari, as you carry on around the ship, and again, this ship is pretty badly beaten up. As I say, as you step through the corridors, there are teams working on repairing damage. And she, assures you that the Arcasay have a different belief to the majority of the Vinchari. We don't believe that a clenched fist is the answer to everything. There is. She goes. Sorry, go on.
Plume with us.
He can be if you want. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I mean, it makes sense that you would bring a medic with you.
Because I just want to ask him, just kind of step back and ask him if there's a test for Stockholm syndrome.
I don't know. Is there? I mean, psychologically, I suppose. I'm not a psychologist, but I guess it's a psychological thing, isn't it? Really, rather than a medical, physical. I guess you have a reliance on. What the impression you get from him is more that the problem he has is that he doesn't really, he and again, I guess you could believe or not believe him, but what he's saying is that he's when he was revived, he remembers sort of shadows and vague memories of the Tilikal as they were. So he knows what he is. He knows that his others of his race are kind of trapped, trapped in the other dimension. He remembers something of his life before, but when again he was tortured by the Vinchari to tell him all about their technology, and he couldn't remember anything about he couldn't remember anything that specific. So he suspects that maybe when the Vinchari revived him and his colleagues. Maybe they messed something up and he's not fully, didn't regain all of his memories. And again, this is what he tells you, and he's quite happy to discuss this with you. And he's quite interested when you, presuming that you discuss with him what happened to you in the other dimension, and the fact again that Starfleet is actively engaged in trying to, at least understand what is going on with the Tilikal, if not actively bring them back, but certainly, you are aware from recent events that the Tilikal themselves are also trying to break through and to come back. So this is all fascinating, and he's quite happy to discuss this with you. And you don't get the impression from him that he's misleading you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything any of you want to specifically ask him, or before we move on? I mean, as I say, you're going around the ship, and Giara, you can maybe offer some suggestions in terms of assisting them. But again, they've got everything under control. They are repairing the ship. They're doing their best to get it repaired.
I don't know what there is to do, really.
No, that's right. I mean, but again, these guys are not they're no slouches, and they've got their technology is certainly equal to, if not better than, Starfleet technology. But again, you find it if nothing else, you find it very interesting to see how this all works. And again, this kind of odd combination of old school aesthetic with modern technology. What about the rest of you? If as you're going around, is there anything else any of you? Because I can move on, but is there anything else anyone specifically wants to kind of ask or investigate at this point?
Well, before we ask for help, I think we should offer our help and ask how we can help them.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a good shout. So she's very she's that is she welcomes your assistance, and again she recognizes that she goes we share an issue here that separately we are in dire straits. However, I know that the Vinchari raiders who have taken your power source will take it to a colony world which lies about half a light year from our current location. It is possible, if we strike quickly, that we can retrieve your and she used the word power source. She doesn't know the word warp core, but we can retrieve your power source before they have a chance to disseminate it further. I propose that we work together with joint cooperation. What we can do is we should be able to extend our warp field to encompass your vessel, which would allow us at least to make a short distance warp jump, such as we would need to retrieve your power system. It will be difficult for us to enter Vinchari space undetected. However, it is not impossible, and I believe if we cooperate, we can do this, and not only strike a blow for the Arcasay, but also retrieve your power source and hopefully send you back to your Federation in the spirit of cooperation.
Now, the contract for doing this will be even longer than applying for Starfleet.
Well, certainly. Oh, he's gone again. Is that Mike again?
I think so.
Yeah.
Mike, are you still there? Or has he gone again?
No, he's gone.
Okay. So let me just quickly chuck in a little captain's log here to sort of summarise where we are. So captain's log supplemental. So cue a sort of montage shot of work going on both Vigilant and on the Vinchari on the Arcasay ship. While studying a new life form known as the Hakiv, we have encountered the Vinchari. They attacked us without provocation, and now several members of my crew are injured. They took our warp core. Also, it has been determined that they have also retrieved information from our database in the course of their intrusion, and also abducted the Hakiv. We're too far from Federation space for assistance, but we have also made first contact with the Arcasay. a dissenting faction of the Vinchari, and a Tilikal associate of theirs who believes the Vinchari may have access to Tilikal technology or are at least investigating that possibility. If that's true, it's possible that the Vinchari will look to expand their influence beyond the Shackleton expanse. We have no choice but to warn Starfleet, and to do that we need to retrieve our warp core before our reserve power is depleted. I've invited our new friends aboard to discuss next steps. So Naismith has brought, as Kalish mentioned, in the spirit of cooperation and having offered your assistance, Naismith has invited Jalara and Taysin. That was his name, wasn't it? Taysin, the Tilikal, and you, and also the Vinchar or the Arcasay chief engineer have come aboard the Vigilant, and you're now working out plans on how to get yourselves to where you need to get to. As mentioned in the captain's log, you don't really have. Naismith has decided that you don't really have much choice other than to go along with this because, again, you are too far distant from the Federation at this point to get assistance, and the only chance you would have to get help is to get the runabout repaired and send for assistance that way. But that will take time, and obviously, as time, the more time you leave it, basically, the more chance that the warp core will be broken into parts or whatever they do with it. So he's taken the decision that you're going to at least attempt to do what Jalara has suggested. So her thinking is that what you can do is you can basically get the two ships close enough together that they can extend their warp field around the Vigilant, and then you can make a very short range warp jump. Again, as she said, this planet that she believes the warp core will be taken to is only about half a light year away, but obviously even half a light year without warp drive might as well be, the other end of the Alpha Quadrant. So you've come together to decide.
I want to wander off and have a chat with the other Vulcans on our ship.
Okay, fine. What would you like? Do you want to come back to me on that, or do you want to talk? What do you want to do?
Well, you finish what you're saying, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay. So what's been decided? So you guys have a bit of a meeting, and chief engineers of both ships, so Kiara and the chief engineer from the other vessel, have come up with a plan. So what you're going to need to do, and there's a few tasks here that you're going to have to do to get this to work. So the first thing that you will have to do is you're going to have to orient the two ships. So you're going to have basically the Arcasay vessel, or the Vigilant will basically have to maneuver close to the hull of the Arcasay, or the Liberator, I should say, to get you into the right orientation, so that you're close enough, so that the warp field will surround you both. So that's going to be a con test that Kaz will have to do to basically maneuver close enough to get that to happen. So once that happens, the Liberator will extend the gravitational force field over both ships, and that will allow the crews to work on the hull of both vessels, because what you're going to then need to do is to connect plasma transfer lines between the two ships to give you extra power, to allow you to make sure that the structural integrity field and that your deflectors are working so that the Vigilant can survive a warp jump. And as I say, the Arcasay are offering to basically give you the power to do that, but to do that, you're going to need to literally plug in, power conduits. And so, as I say, you're going to maneuver close enough, extend the gravitational force field around the two ships, so that your crews can work on the hull to get that done. And then finally, engineers will work out the power flow to make sure that everything is in place for you to make the warp jump. Right, Kevin, what was it you wanted to? What was your cunning plan?
I'm going to speak to the Vulcan and say,
yeah. So that I think we established there were two other Vulcans, didn't we?
I thought it was a Vulcan and another empath.
Oh, you're right. There's a Betazoid. Yeah, you're right. There's a Betazoid and a Vulcan.
Essentially, what I want to know is, does she recall, this female Vulcan, if there is a way in which we can use mind meld to retrieve lost memories?
Okay. I mean, there is, yes. If those memories are there to be retrieved, I guess is the answer.
Okay.
So
So-
yes, Vulcan mental disciplines. The mind meld Vulcan mental disciplines will allow you to do that.
Okay.
But it
so
depends whether there is anything there for the memories, for them to retrieve. So if there's no memories, then you can't retrieve them. If they are there but hidden, then yes, you can.
Right. So I want to have a chat with the Carl.
Tilly Cole geezer, yeah.
And explain to him the possibility of what I might be able to do.
Okay.
And if he agrees to it, an attempt to retrieve his memories, because he might be able to pull some piece of technology out of his bum to get us working quicker.
Okay. Well. Okay. No, that's interesting. So
Cool thing, as it were.
So Thasin, so you have a conversation with him, and again, he's. I certainly would be willing to undergo such a procedure if it's possible that you could retrieve any of these memories. I would be open to that. It would certainly benefit the Arcasay, and it may also provide us with a means of stopping the Tilicals, not the Tilical, the Vinchari. So yes, I would willingly submit such a procedure, but I will need. He says I will need to discuss this with my captain.
That's okay. I can do a demonstration
can
on a member of a member on our team to show you what I propose to do. And therefore, without any harm to yourself, kind of thing.
Okay, no, that seems perfectly reasonable. Right. Meanwhile, so Kalish, what about? Is there anything that you want to do in terms of? So, having heard the plan here, what about? Are there any security procedures that you want to implement?
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's not overly happy with this arrangement, at least not entirely, perhaps.
No. But she'll go along with it. She'll follow orders. She would like to be briefed as much as possible on their sort of strategies of the. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the guys we're attacking.
The Vinchari.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to be briefed on their sort of their strategies, how they, what we might encounter and their defensive procedures or what.
So you have a conversation with Jalara, and she says, well, the Vinchari's main tactic is they're not subtle, and they tend not to. So that the crux of her plan is that the Vinchari don't really do subtle. They don't understand what she's learnt because they've been fighting a rebel action against a much larger force. Is they've obviously had to develop techniques that are more
guerrilla,
more subtle and more guerrilla. And whereas the Vincharis, as you've seen, the Vincharis kind of tactic is they come steaming in, they take what they want, and then they disappear. They don't stick around to finish off survivors. They just go, right, well, we want your power source. That's what we're going to get. And they throw everything at that to get that objective.
Yeah.
And so, but the downside of that thinking is that they don't really foresee kind of sneakiness and sneaking around, and that's what the Arcasay have had to cultivate to be able to successfully fight a resistance. So what she tells you is her plan, and again, just as a little preview, what she is proposing, and she'll discuss this with you as the tactical, specialist, is that her plan is if we can successfully jump to the system she's talking about, there is actually a large debris field, basically of discarded vessels, where the Vinchari have kind of, once they've captured vessels, taken their power source, and then they just discarded these vessels into the system. So there's a large, essentially, graveyard of dead ships. And the Vinchari space is protected by some automated drones, and they have drones scattered around the perimeter. But what she's proposing is that you sneak in, you get the Vigilant in with the two ships into this graveyard of ships close enough, then you can take over remotely one of the drones, and then with a bit of luck and a bit of computer expertise, you can basically use you can basically reprogram the drones to either not see you, or you can disguise your ships as they'll be recognized as drones by the other ships. And because the Vinchari don't expect subterfuge, their computer systems are not as robust as they might be. So she's relatively confident that, assuming you can get there, then you'll be able to basically sneak in, because they won't expect it. They, as I say, they expect a frontal assault. They don't expect a kind of underhand approach, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and it's only these drones that we would expect as resistance then when we're there.
Yeah, because she says that they assume that their defenses are adequate. They assume that these drones, as I say, they position these drones around their colonies, and the drones will basically attack anything that's got a power source, and they don't need to worry about it. And so the only time they go out is when they go actively looking for for more power source. So that's their doubt. That in her opinion, that's their tactical weakness, is they don't expect subterfuge.
Okay.
Okay. So so right. Well, so all this is going on. So you've agreed on on at least an approach. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go through these. We'll go through these. See if you can manage to get these tasks done to get you all set up to make this happen. So, right, Mike, Kaz, you're up first. All right. So you're going to need to make a control or daring. So it's up to you. I'll let you pick which is best.
I'll take
plus con. So it's a control or daring.
So I'll take
plus
control and con, which is 15.
Yeah. Okay. Difficulty is 2. So if you want to just roll that. So at the moment you've got 1 point of momentum in your. Actually, no, you haven't, because that's reduced because we've changed scenes. So you've got no momentum at the moment, but you obviously you've got a difficulty of 2. So you can obviously use a focus because obviously you've got helm control, haven't you, as a focus? Now you can't use the ship to assist you because essentially it's in such a bad way at the moment. It's not really going to help you. But you've got 2 successes. That's perfect. So what you managed to do then is you basically flip or you bring the Vigilant close underneath the Arcasay vessel. You sort of tuck it in literally right underneath the hull, and you're literally maintaining a sort of 15-meter separation between the 2 ships. So there's lots of flaring of reaction thrusters as the 2 vessels kind of maneuver in. But eventually you tuck the ship in nice and closely. So okay, so I am going to roll for the Vinchari, the Arcasay, because they're going to basically try and now extend their gravitational field around, or their gravitational force field around the 2 vessels. So just bear with me. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so luckily no complication there, so that's good. So right, as the 2 ships are close together, so the next thing that happens is you see this sort of shimmering field envelops the Vigilant, and they've extended their gravitational fielding. So what this means, there's an atmosphere on top of the Vigilant now, and engineers from both ships can actually access the top of the ship and can then work to make the necessary connections to allow power to be transferred. So, Giara, I need you to make a roll for me next, please.
Yeah, focus.
So yes, a good old electro power systems, which is that's literally the most useful focus in this game, I think, because it's applicable to everything pretty much.
And
so reason and engineering is perfect. 2 dice this time.
Yeah.
And if you just want to make a roll for me, that'd be brilliant. Look at that, 3 successes. Okay, perfect. You only needed 2 successes, so that gives you a point of momentum. So you've generated a point of momentum. And so what happens is takes a couple of hours, and your guys have managed. The 2 teams of engineers have now managed to make some hard connections between the 2 ships, and as they do that, then you begin to get power transferring from the Arcasay vessel into the Vigilance power banks. Because of your work, Giara, that you did previously with when you're actually interfering with the Vinchari power systems, this has gone a little bit easier for you. And as I said, you've already managed to get some of the connections in place. So sure enough, the ships are now linked, and again, power is beginning to flow between the two vessels. And so as you complete these tasks, and the ships are now ready to make the attempt at the warp jump. So, but going back to Osterhagen, while this is going on, you've been talking to your guy, Thasin, and you successfully, as you said, you demonstrate the mind meld. Basically, I guess you probably would. Would you like to use the Vulcan, or would you get a volunteer, get like a human volunteer or something, just to demonstrate it?
I will say to him, please choose someone, so it's random.
Yep.
Just to give him a more a better feeling. That actually, I just want to kind of.
Okay, so no, that makes sense. Well, okay, so that's fine. So he, you're literally in the sort of mess hall. There's lots of tired crew members around you. Kind of, all been working very hard to get this, and he sort of, he picks one of the, security entrants or something, who kind of, is, you have a word with her and she volunteers to undergo it. And you don't need to roll for it. You can easily attempt the mind meld. So he seems reassured by this. And I think what we'll do is we'll park that just for now, only because I don't want to get into that just yet, because it obviously there might be more to that. So as this is going on, you prepare to make the warp jump. The two ships, everyone gets prepared, and Naismith sounds yellow alert to ensure that everyone's prepared. And again, similarly on the Arcasay vessel, Captain Jalara, you're both in communication. We are ready to proceed. And so on the screen, you see the Vigilant tucked underneath this vessel, and kind of begins to gain distance away from the gas giant. And as you pick up speed, and then the two ships kind of jump to warp. So we're going to leave it there for now, I think.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Starship Vigilant. Kaz was played by Mike. David Osterhagen was played by Kevin. Kolish was played by Kerin. Our music is Fanfare for Space by Kevin MacLeod, which is licensed under a Creative Commons license. See you next time.